All right, y'all, we got to talk because apparently some people think that there's such a thing as too much representation in books. Like, what? When did seeing actual real life people in stories become a bad thing? We live in a world full of different races, cultures, sexualities, religions, all of that. So why wouldn't our books reflect that? Imagine someone looking around the world and saying, you know what, this is too much diversity. That sounds crazy, don't it? But every time a book features multiple marginalized characters, suddenly the forced diversity police show up in the comments talking about this doesn't feel realistic. But a 17-year-old girl leading a revolution with no military training, that's realistic? Yeah, we're going to break this all the way down. Is there a such thing as too much representation? Spoiler, no, there's not. But we're also going to talk about the difference between tokenism and real representation. Why people are even having this conversation in the first place, and how does social media like BookTok play a role in shaping this whole conversation? Sometimes in a good way, most of the time, not so much. Step. Why does representation even matter? And no, it's not just about adding diversity for the sake of it. It's about visibly understanding and making sure people actually see themselves in stories. Books shape the way we see the world. They let us step into someone else's experience, see different perspectives, and feel seen. And for some readers, books are the only place that they get to see themselves reflected. Books are the only place that they get to see themselves reflected. That's powerful. Now, how about some facts? A 2020 study from the Cooperative Children's Book Center found that 12% of books features Black characters, 9% have Asian representation, 5% has Latinx representation, and Indigenous representation, that shit's at 1%. Like, are we seeing the problem here? Meanwhile, white, straight, able-bodied protagonists, they out here multiplying like rabbits. So if anything, we have too much representation, okay? We don't have enough from us. Some books that get it right. Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, a Black girl with magic and grief in a King Arthur retelling. 5 stars. Yes, please. You made a fool of death with your beauty. I'm going to pop up the author's name so I don't mess it up. A messy queer Black romance with death. A Snake Falls to Earth by Darcy Little Badger. Indigenous futurism meets a beautiful storytelling. Check out some of those reads. Y'all, Tracy Deonn is a 5-star. And the new book is coming out. Tracy Deonn is a 5-star. All right, let's break down the whack argument. When people say a book is packed with diverse characters and it feels forced or unrealistic, but do they ever say that with fantasy books that have dragons, magic swords, made up languages? Nah, that's not the complaint. The truth is, real life is messy and diverse. A person can be Black and queer, Latinx and disabled, South Asian and non-binary. That's not too much. It's just life, y'all. And if we keep it at 100, this issue is only when the diverse characters are in the forefront. When they're in the background, don't nobody care. But when they take center stage, suddenly people out here clutching their pearls like the whole book is falling apart. Let's be real. When the last time you heard someone complain, damn, this book got too many white characters in it? Okay. Swap those white faces for a vibrant, diverse cast, and suddenly folk acts like the world is ending. And here's the real issue. White folks don't tell other people's stories better than those who have lived them. Period. For too long, publishing assumed white authors should be the gate characters of every narrative. And when white authors write outside their lane, it's usually a mess of inaccuracies, stereotypes, and straight up harmful portrayals. The issue is not that there's too many diverse books. Its publishing still pushes white authors to write these diverse stories instead of giving the marginalized voices the mic. Let's talk about some examples. American Dirt by Jeannie Cummins, a white woman's take on Mexican immigrant life that was based off of Latinx authors. That was so off base that Latinx authors were begging y'all not to support it. The Help by Catherine Stockett, profiting off of stories of Black maids while the real-life muse was fighting back in court. Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden, a white guy misrepresenting geisha culture, with the actual woman he based it on later regretting it. These books got blockbuster deals, movie adaptations. All the while, the authentic Latinx, Black, and Japanese writers are still hustling for a spot. So instead of, is there too much diversity? We gotta ask, why are white authors still hogging the narrative for the stories that they don't even live? Books that challenge this directly from the people who live in it. The Blood Trials by Davenport, a badass Black heroine in a sci-fi fantasy world full of revenge and betrayal. Cemetery Boys by Aiden Thomas, a trans Latinx on a quest. She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, a queer gender-bending historical fantasy that keeps you on edge. The bottom line, there's no such thing as too much representation, only gatekeeping. Let's keep it real. Bad representation is a thing. That's when we've hit tokenism. You know the deal. The sassy Black best friend who only job is to dish out advice, the queer character with a tragic backstory who's there for decoration, the token disabled character who just exists to inspire the able-bodied lead. Token characters, they aren't real. They're like checkboxes on a list. And honestly, we deserve better than that. Let's drop some examples of books that got slammed for tokenism or one-dimensional characters. The Maze Runner. Okay? The only Black character was the so-called leader of the Glade for like 3 seconds. And then he got sidelined and injured and basically only exists to boost up the protagonist, the white protagonist, before he dies. Harry Potter. Look, I'm all for nostalgia. Okay? But come on. Cho Chang, the lone East Asian character with a mashed up name, while others like Kingsley and Dean Thomas barely got any real depth. And don't even get me started on half-baked Dumbledore. Gay reveal? Red Queen. There's one queer character who shows up, gets a tragic backstory, and then dies because apparently queer characters aren't meant to have happy endings. Six of Crows. So I like this book, okay? But some say that Kaz's disability is just for show, and Jesper's queerness barely gets any real exploration in the first book. Sure, it improves by the time we get to the Crooked Kingdom, but early on, it's tokenism in disguise. The Love Hypothesis. Our main character is bi, but it's like, thanks for mentioning it. And it's never really a part of her journey. Token characters aren't true representation. They're just slapping on diverse labels to look progressive without digging deep. The real issue isn't diversity. It's lazy writing. Books that nail representation and not just for the aesthetic. We have The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. Sci-fi fantasy meets social commentary that just works together. Hanny and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating by Adiba Jegadar, a queer South Asian romance that is as deep as it is charming. Felix Ever After by Kesson Calendar, a trans Black boy's journey through love, identity, and self-acceptance that just hits all the right notes. I am sorry if I did any mispronunciations, y'all. Now, let's talk about BookTok. Don't get me wrong. It's done a lot for diverse books in general, giving a voice to authors who finally got their name in the sun. But here's the tea. The same 5 books keep on dominating the feed, leaving plenty of bomb diverse reads in the shadows. Some books go viral just because the cover. not because they're new or groundbreaking with representation. I broke this down in my last blog post. Did BookTok save Barnes & Noble? Spoiler, it helped. But it also stirred up some of these same issues. If you haven't checked it out, go ahead, take a look, and get the information on how BookTok is changing the publishing game. Look, I'm all here for a good trend, but if we only read what BookTok serves up, we're missing a whole universe of amazing books. Underrated diverse books to check out instead: Blood Debt by Terry J. Benton Walker. Black fantasy with New Orleans magic and a family legacy. Yes. The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. Queer South Asian inspired epic fantasy. A Psalm for the Wild by Becky Chambers is a cozy sci-fi with neurodivergent vibes. So, if we really want to support diverse stories, we gotta go beyond the algorithm. Follow diverse authors, hit up indie bookstores with curated lists, dig for those hidden gems. And if you want to know more about how BookTok influences what books get the spotlight, go check out my latest blog and how it saved Barnes & Noble. Trust me, it's a good read. Finally, if books can have talking animals, time travel, immortal vampires, shadow daddies, then they can absolutely have characters who reflect the actual world we live in. So let's keep pushing for books that showcase all voices, supporting diverse authors, not just the same ones that go viral. Make sure everyone can see themselves in the books. And if you really want to help, we read widely. Hype up underrated books. Demand better from publishers. Now tell me, what's an amazing voice that has diverse representation? Drop it in the comments so we can grow our TBRs. Do we really need to grow our TBRs? We don't, but they can mind their business. Let's go.